my first advice is try not to doubt yourself too much. Have a little bit more confidence in you as a person and your skill set.
Thank you, Michael, for joining us today. Would you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. My name is Michael, of course. I think we know that by now. I graduated from Portland State University down in Oregon. I studied economics, was really into finance and investments and trading, did some trading in college as well. And that's where I started early on in my career. From there, I had a natural affinity towards data and data analytics. And during that time, back in 2011, 2015, big data was really taking off. So I started diving into Python and R. And as the companies that I started working at got a hold that, it was something I was focused on, I started being pulled into more technical projects and technical implementations. And I felt that it was a great path for me to go down and to continue growing and developing as a professional. Left the financial investment industry, joined some consulting, did some consulting to big retailers across the US in terms of reporting and analytics. Found my way into tech almost by accident. I wasn't really actively looking, but LinkedIn, I would say, is a great place to be because people are always reaching out and providing you with new opportunities. I joined a company called Pros, where I was a product manager for machine learning tools. Left there to join Nike as a product management leader and director, and then was reached out by Google, and that's where I am today as a product manager within their machine learning core team.
Awesome. So, I mean, Google is obviously a big name in tech.
Right.
What was your first reaction when you first got your, job offer letter or the phone call from the recruiter, or, what was your first reaction?
So right away, I come from a very, I would say, untraditional, non-traditional tech background. You typically think of somebody that studied computer science, or especially in product management, somebody that got their MBA and then have that kind of strategy lens and really wants to enter big tech. When the technical recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn, at first I thought it was a scam. So I so I spent hours doing research, like, who is this person? How are they affiliated with Google? How does this make any sense? Because I just recalled a few months before that telling my wife and my friends, like, oh yeah, I think Google, dream company, 5 years down the road, I'll probably send in an application and see how it goes. So it was quite a shock, but right then and there, I started, buckling down in terms of study material and trying to make sure that I knew what to do and what to prepare for in terms of the interview.
Awesome. So obviously you were super excited about the job offer.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I cannot believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the natural question is you mentioned something about someone reaching out to you via LinkedIn. Can you tell me a little bit about your process of getting into the company? Like you said that the person or recruiter reached out to you, but can you share a little bit more about details and, like, what did the interview process look like? What did how long did it take? How many, interview stages do you have and all that stuff?
Yeah, definitely happy to. So in terms of the interview or recruitment application process, I never actually applied. So what happened was a technical sourcer had reached out to me. And if anybody goes on LinkedIn and looks for Google technical recruiters or Google technical sourcers, there is a slight difference. And one of the reasons I was weary of them reaching out to me was that technical sourcers typically aren't Google employees. They're more like
Mm,
contractors that work alongside Google to try to find talent. But through that, I said, "Hey, sure, I will take an initial call." And really, the first call is just getting to know you, getting to know why it is that you're doing what you do and what you want to do after. Assuming that they feel that you're a good fit, then they line you up with a phone interview with
mhm.
another product manager to see if it's worthwhile to continue talking to you on site. Of course, during the age of COVID, on site is really just some more virtual interviews.
Yep.
So from there, it was like four to five more interviews on via Google Meet, and then the final process was the decision making process and eventually the offer.
Okay. How long did it take? The whole thing? From let's say the day the recruiter reached or the sourcer reached out to you till the day you actually got the offer?
So it was a very unique time of the year because the sourcer did reach out to me towards the end of October.
Okay.
And so it's really the end of the year. The holidays are coming up. People are going to be out. So between the end of October uh, to the end of January was when
Oh,
I
okay.
actually got the offer. So it was about a few months
Oh
long.
wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
In terms of the interview, like what were the questions were you getting? Was it like, pretty much the usual product management, like, case questions, or was it like behavioral questions? Did you have any, let's say, technical assessments, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Google being a big tech company certainly wants their product managers to understand how technology is built, designed, and implemented because for the most part, the products that you will be working on as a product manager are extremely technical. Having said that, throughout the interview process, there were 5 interviews. Of those 5 interviews, there was one technical interview.
Hmm.
And that technical interview isn't necessarily like code something or write
Mm-hmm.
down some code like an engineering candidate would have, but
Mm-hmm.
more of a system explanation or
Yep.
system design
Mm-hmm.
type of interview.
Gotcha.
Um, and the other 4 were kind of divvied up between the typical product management type questions like design X for
Yeah.
Y, or they would be more along the lines of strategy questions. How would you launch X in Y market? How would you work with a competitor or a collaborator to release something? What do you think the latest trends are and how would you capitalize on those trends? So staying abreast on what's happening in the technical world is also ideal.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So, moving on to the next question. So, tell me about what you do as a product manager. And I think you said something about, AI and machine learning.
Yes. My experience within product management has been mostly with infrastructure teams
Mm,
or internal infrastructure teams. So when you think of a typical product manager, you think of maybe somebody doing something really amazing for Google Maps or for YouTube, and users or billions of users being able to reap those benefits right away. The thing about being a infrastructure product manager, and I do work in the AI and ML space, is that the tools that I help prioritize and launch are being used by Google first, as
mm,
in other Google engineers or other Google product managers are actually using the features and the products that I help prioritize and shape. So it's a very complex, uh, I guess, environment because your customers are also other product managers. So
mm.
you're thinking the same way that they do, and they're thinking the same way that you do. And putting 2 product managers in a room is a very interesting viewpoint. I'll just put it that way.
Gotcha. So you said you work on, can you maybe share a little bit more, about like your day to day maybe? Do you said you work with other product managers as well, but like, how does that kind of dynamics work? Do you have like, do you work with the engineers a lot? Do you work with like other product managers a lot, or like let's say like marketing peoples as well and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. So with an infrastructure product, since it is like a internal, it's internal tooling, there isn't necessarily a marketing arm.
Hmm.
However, I'd say 90% of my time is spent between engineering, user research, and the other PMs that own the products that would then latch on to these infrastructure products. For the most part, it is spent a lot with user research and engineering. Engineering in the sense that the core infrastructure team products are extremely technical. A lot of
Mm,
them are just back end services. There's no beautiful front end. There's no buttons. There's just a bunch of pass data in, get data out, and the user research really helps me as a product manager understand what other engineers at Google are going through and why certain products need certain journeys through this kind of back end product.
mhm.
Um, that's 90% of my time. The other 10% is spent doing, I would say, documentation work or
Yeah,
emailing
yeah.
and reviewing things. Yeah, that's
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Probably not the most fun part of the job. Um, so you used to work as a product manager, and you led team, in Nike and all that. So coming into Google, obviously it's a massive company. Did you have any sort of learning curve? And if yes, like how were you able to kind of, get through it?
uh, so there was definitely a learning curve. Um, and the learning curve has less to do with the work itself or the interactions that happen. I can confidently say that throughout my product management career, the interactions and the breakout of what's done in the role is fairly similar. Now, the biggest thing
Hmm.
at Google is the scale at which things happen
Mm,
and the level of thinking that a PM has to have. Sometimes when I'm thinking about users, I can picture maybe 10 to 15 users in my head that may want to benefit from this product. It's hard for me to imagine a billion users trying to benefit from a product because I've mostly worked in the infrastructure product. So I'm working with 10 to 15 engineers and trying to enable them to do their jobs. But those 10 to 15 engineers are trying to do something that will then touch billions of users. So
mhm.
I have to think about security. I have to think about fairness. I have to think about responsible AI. Those are things that I'm still learning and I'm still ramping up on. But that has been the largest learning part of the learning curve for me
Gotcha.
personally.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. You worked as a product manager for a while now. And coming into Google, it's been, I think, like 3 months ish. What's the part that you like the most, and what's the part that maybe you don't like the most, like the part that you like the least, maybe?
Yeah, sure, sure. And I think that this is going to be a very fresh perspective because we're in 2022. We're still going through COVID. We're maybe transitioning off of it, and people are starting to go back into the office. So uh, uh, I think you said one thing I really like. I'm going to say a few things. First is we all know Google provides excellent food. And the and employees don't are you get it as a benefit, and that's one of the things that I've actually really appreciated because I've been eating a lot healthier, so it's great. Except for the desserts, I try to not eat as many cookies. So look forward to that if you ever get into Google.
Yep.
And the second thing is everyone is always thinking about the user and what
Mm,
we can do to change the world in a positive way, because that's the type of impact that Google products have. And so no matter who I talk to at any given time, even when there's a slight disagreement or an argument, at the end of it all, we're just chuckling and laughing because we realize that we're both trying to do the same thing. And that's really help people of planet Earth, find information, be successful in their lives,
yeah.
and really take that next step. So that's a common thing all across Google, no matter if you're the chef making the food or you're an engineer writing a ton of code. Um, Now, something that I haven't gotten quite used to yet is that Google is a bunch of little pieces put together. And
Mm,
what I mean by that is it's a really big company. And with a company that size, it's truly hard to have a directive that goes top down. Like I don't expect our CEO to say, here, this is exactly how every team has to do something. So a lot of it gets done bottom up. So teams have to talk, they have to communicate a lot, they have to figure things out. But while they're doing that, because there's a lack of kind of top down oversight, which also stifles innovation, there are opportunities for teams to duplicate work. So
Mm,
a lot of teams can be doing the same thing at the exact same time, and it feels inefficient, but in the long run, it's also brought Google many successes. That is something that I can't say
yeah.
I like entirely, but I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes total sense. And obviously I think it's what happens with those, bigger companies, especially when they're, running their teams a lot more autonomously versus kind of top down approach. So yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. So can you tell me a little bit about, Google's culture maybe? Culture is a, very important piece these days when joining a company, when, joining in the org. It's not about, as you mentioned, it's not about joining just about a company, but it's about, the mission that you said, trying to make the earth or try to make the human, life better. Like, can you tell me a little bit about the culture?
Yes, yes, definitely. Culture is certainly one of the reasons why, one of the main reasons why I wanted to shift over to Google. And the culture at Google is extremely is about being extremely transparent.
Hmm.
You can have an idea and people are going to listen to you even if right away they're already objecting that idea. They'll at
Hmm.
least listen to you and hear you out, and you can fail and still move forward without any types of lashback at Google. I have seen and talked to many individuals at Google in my first few months here, and there are certain times where I'll talk to them about an idea that didn't really get fully flushed out or didn't get supported or funded all the way. And I asked them about that. And I inquired about that, and they essentially said, "Hey, that was a huge learning opportunity for the whole team and for Google as a whole. And we took that as a positive, actually, even though it
Hmm.
didn't get funded, even though we didn't get to actually create something. And we took that lesson and we applied it to the next product that we were allocated to. And now this product that we've taken these lessons from is a huge success. And Google knows that. And Google understands that. And Google accepts that things will fail multiple times before they're actually successful. And that helps people really relax and removes the fear of failure from a lot of the employees and the culture as a whole. So people are upfront, people are transparent, people are self motivated and also motivate you to be your very best. And that's what I really like at Google.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think one of the things that someone mentioned to me before was like fail fast and then learn from it and then make things better. I think that's exactly what you were just trying to say, as well. um my last question is advice for those who want to join Google as a product manager.
Yes, yes, that advice. What I will say is, like, I doubted myself, right? I
Ah,
said, hey, I'm not going to apply in 5 years. I'm going to push it out. I don't think I'm good enough yet.
mm,
Although I'm working at Nike and it's somewhat well known, I don't think I'm at Google scale, right? And
mm,
so my first advice is try not to doubt yourself too much. Have a little bit more confidence in you as a person and your skill set, because that confidence will ultimately lead to your ability to land a Google job. As soon as you doubt yourself, even through the interview process or through pressing the apply button, you've already lost, because you want to bring that confidence through your product. You want to bring that confidence through your interview process, and Google will notice that, and Google will really appreciate that, because they want somebody to confidently take that next step and be fearless when
mm.
it comes to making those small bets that can truly change the world.
Love it. Yeah, no, I totally agree because like I came to the US like I think 5 years ago, and when I thought about where I would land, I never thought about getting into Amazon. So like something very similar to you, like just like believe in yourself, and then things will happen. But yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Hey, Michael, thank you so much. That was all for today. It wasn't that bad. It was pretty good, right?
Yeah, it was I was pretty relaxed through it all. I was also cognizant of, like, my speech pattern, because I didn't want to, like, say too many ums or ahs or or weird pauses. So, but I appreciate your candidness. It was really
Yeah.
really fun.
Awesome.